شكرا جزيلا للمتحدثين في هذه الجلسة. ندعو الآن الدكتور أحمد المعشري من كلية الهندسة بجامعة السلطان قابوس لإدارة الجلسة الحوارية الثانية مع الدكتور ناصر الزيدي والفاضل أبهاس أبنهاف والفاضل ماريو بولينغ والفاضلة دورothy جوردن.
Great thanks to the speakers for their interesting talks. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Ahmed Al-Mashari from College of Engineering at Sultan Qaboos University to moderate the second panel discussion with Dr. Nasser Alzidi, Mr. Abhas Abhinav, Mr. Mario Behling, and Ms. Dorothy Gordon. المايكات هذا لك متحركة.
السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم. Do you like the show so far? Are you hungry? So the only thing between you and the lunch is this, right? So stick around. We'll not take too much of your time, and soon we'll be done. We're waiting for Abhas is here. What about Mario? He's not with us? Okay, so probably we can start. Before I start with the session, just a quick reminder that the innovative organizers of this conference, they came up with a nice way of ask questions. So if you go to the website, you can ask questions, and then, of course, it will be filtered out. We'll pick the nice ones, and then we'll ask guys here to answer your questions, okay? The first thing I will do here is ask the guys here to introduce themselves and probably give a brief bio about themselves. Dorothy?
Hello. Thank you. Can you hear me? My name's Dorothy Gordon. I'm currently the chair of the Intergovernmental Council of UNESCO's Information for All program. But prior to that, for about 13 years, I was the Director General of the Ghana-India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. And we implemented a wholly open source system, both back-end and front-end. And it's really giving me a great pleasure to have the opportunity to interact with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Nasser?
Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm Nasser Alzidi, and I'm actually an associate professor in computer science here in SKU. And currently I'm also running the Center for Information System, which is responsible for all IT services in SKU. That's it.
Abhas?
Yeah, my name's Abhas. I've been using free software for more than 20 years now, and I run a free software business called Deeproot, where we provide services to organizations who want to implement free software for a variety of purposes. I also run a small hardware company where my intention is to develop liberated hardware that will allow us to run free software. And I think that's one of the challenges that I see in today's world, where we don't have, we run too much proprietary software because the hardware we choose doesn't support free software. I'm also on the board of the Free Software Foundation of India, where I participate in various advocacy initiatives to create greater awareness about software freedom, not just the collaborative or what is called the open nature of the software, but the freedom aspect of free software as well. Thank you.
Okay, and Mario has just joined us. If you can introduce yourself and give a brief bio.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity here. And yeah, I have to say I'm very excited to be here. Yeah, I I just met a lot of your students already here in the university, and yeah, we immediately got into discussions about technology and what we can do, and about our projects and how they can join. So I'm sorry to be late, because we were so much into the topic and already discussing what we can work on together that we missed the time. I'm so sorry, but like, I think we're already achieving the goal of this conference, which is all about collaboration and opportunities for education, everything. About me, shortly, so I've lived many years in Asia, but I'm originally from Germany, from Berlin. And yeah, I'm one of the founders of FOSS Asia, which is a big community that we started in Asia. We have a lot of developers, over 3,000 registered on GitHub. We are making software projects, also hardware projects. And yeah, that's a bit about my background. And I was in many different countries. And yeah, now I'm here in Oman, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mario. And just because you were late, you have to pay for lunch. For all of us.
Oh, okay. Yes, so I invite you to join us at the FOSS Asia Summit, and of course I will do that.
Thank you.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Now, we started having questions. Just to make this a bit more organized, if you can precede your question with the name of the person you would like to ask. Example, Ahmed, what's your date of birth? Right? Answer, none of your business. Right? So please make sure when you ask this question, precede it with the name of the person you would like to ask. Before I take questions from the audience, I want to ask Abhas. So there was a study that was done 2015-2016 by SKU and ITA. And part of the study is to figure out what are the challenges faced by SMEs, small and medium enterprises. And it seems that there is an intent to adopt free open source as a business, but because of these challenges, numerous challenges, they refrain from adopting these. This is a model of business. Now, based on your experience in Deeproot and the software industry in India, what would be the secret recipe for a SME to adopt and to have an effective transfer of technology?
So the secret recipe would just be a firm intention. You know, if you're firm on this, then everything else, every other challenge that you perceive is something you will surmount by some means or the other. That's the way I look at it. Like, there was a customer where we implemented a server in 2001. They're still using it today, after close to 18 years. And the reason is, the person who runs that company, though they're a small manufacturing unit, they manufacture auto parts, he just made a decision in 2001 that he wants to build everything in his office, in his manufacturing unit, using free software, right? Now, it's not that nothing has happened since 2001 till now, that new challenges haven't come up and new solutions haven't come up to existing and new problems. But he's very clear as to what he wants to do, and which is to use free software, right? So the way I look at it is, it's a creative process, right? Once you decide that that's how you want to do things, every challenge is a creative process. Now you have to, it's a lot of fun. How do I surmount this challenge? I've got a new situation where I have to figure out how to apply free software, which is what my decision is. I think that's the fun part. It's no fun if there were no challenges, right? So when you talk about SMEs, I think there is at least one way in which everyone can use free software. And today, people pay too much attention to convenience and not enough to freedom and the ownership that they can get out of free software. And I think that is the thing that people have to reflect on. It's no one's business to tell someone else that you should forsake that convenience. But every one of us has to evaluate what is the price of having that convenience. And if we are forsaking security or privacy or freedom or opportunity to learn for that convenience. And it's especially relevant to students today. When I go and judge projects that students do, very unfortunately, 90% of them are making choices with technology where they don't even run most of the software that the project uses on their own computer. And they don't even want to run a simple database on their own computer. Now, if that's the choice they have made for that's a shortcut they want to take, there is no way I can make free software appealing to them, right? So they have to remind themselves, look, we are supposed to be learning here by making a choice where we don't install, say, SQLite on our computer, we're not learning something, and hence that is what we should do, right? So that's my perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, Abhas. I got a couple of questions to Nasser, more or less the same. Is the GIT hub, the one you presented, is it open for the community? Is collaboration possible? If you can elaborate on that.
Thank you, Ahmed. We haven't opened it for the community. The local installation is for SKU currently. For our code, all source code versioning control solutions. However, probably I'm not, well, everybody knows that in Oman here now we are running what's so-called the OMREN, the Oman Research and Education Network, where SQ is a key member. And the plan is actually to provide IT services over a high-speed network connecting different educational institutions in Oman. And it would be possible for SQ to open at least the GitHub repository for educational institutions. But currently, it's only for SQ.
Thank you, Nasser. I want to ask Dorothy a question. Are there any UNESCO programs, let's say especially for students and young professionals, which help them to facilitate free open source in bridging the gap and having an effective technology transfer? Are there any such programs?
Well, I think if you look at what UNESCO has done, and I always have to remind people that what the UN does is a result of what member states want the UN to do. And so you'll see that there are a number of declarations that have been made. There's a number of resource materials that are available online that can help people who are interested in doing so. And as Professor just said, there are research networks around the world that are using open source in educational context. In education, perhaps the most important is the fact that we now have a lot of serious attention being given to open education resources. And also, just last week, we had a declaration on the importance of source code, the retention, the preservation of source code as an international heritage that cannot be lost. I would like to comment a little bit on the question that you asked, because I have worked a lot on encouraging SMEs to get into open source. But when you talk about SMEs and open source, there are two angles. One is the SME which is providing open source solutions, and the other is the SME that is consuming open source solutions. And one of the aspects that has worked well is for the company that is actually an open source solution provider, they do not always tell their client that this is an open source solution. They look at the problem and then they say, I have a software that can help you solve this problem. And then we have online, for any students who want to become rich very quick, there are millions of resources, not millions, maybe thousands, thousands of resources explaining the different business models you can use to make money from open source. And the bottom line is, if you are operating a company that is selling open source solutions, you should have the same level of professionalism and customer care as any other company. And you must make sure that your client knows that they can count on you. And then it will be as you described. The client never wants to leave because you are actually providing value. So the most important thing is provide value. For me, that's the solution. The challenges we have, people don't understand it. Do not try to explain to somebody who doesn't even understand what software is the difference between proprietary and open. They will just think, don't go near him. We don't know what he's talking about. You know, I could go on and on this subject, but please just explore the business models that have been well documented for making money off open source. Do not have the impression that once it is open source, it means you should be hungry and starving. No.
Thank you, Dorothy. For some reason, Dr. Nasser is being hammered by questions, but I'll come back to you in a second. I want to ask Mario. Tomorrow you're going to give a talk, and it's about business opportunity, basically. And while I was going through the abstract, it seems that you have some experience in Afghanistan and even in Vietnam, right? Now, to me, once you have a business opportunity, that's basically will be an enabler. It's main driver for embracing the technology, localizing it, and even having effective transfer of that technology. Based on your experience in that part of the world, how can you relate to Oman? Do you see any similarities, any opportunities?
Okay, so, well, I'm not an expert on Oman, but of course you are, and yeah, I'm happy to share experiences that I've made. Yeah, I mean, like there are always opportunities, and I think when I look already here at the poster of the event, like I already see that you're looking at these opportunities here in Oman, and I'm sure like the big internet providers and technology companies here, they are using open source, because nowadays it's just not possible to not use open source. It's everywhere today, and the question is, how can we bring these opportunities also to like students and yeah, startups that can yeah, take part and take advantage of the code that is there already. And you already described a lot. Like what I can share from my personal experience is, like in Vietnam, we did mainly outsourcing, over several years for postal companies. So it was like entirely open for open source solutions, but you know, there are always like bits and pieces that need to be developed. And one obvious thing is that many open source applications don't support Arab languages, like Arab. And I'm personally like I know that there are even like different dialects, and I don't know how much they reflect. But yeah, I know this. For example, in Europe, I'm German, and we have Austrian German and Swiss German, and there are already differences. So the Arab world is much bigger, and so I think there are differences. So there are always opportunities for companies to support certain solutions in local languages and to develop ads and pieces that are necessary here. So for example, discussions that I had just now at FOSS Asia, we have an event system which is similar to Eventbrite, but also has the options for like call for papers, call for speakers, and so on. And we don't support Arab yet, and also we don't support the local payment gateways. Yeah, as we discussed, like people need to learn, like have an income, and that could be interesting because I know that, for example, PayPal is not very well supported in Oman, and Eventbrite supports PayPal, but I think they don't support other payment gateways here. So we would even have an advantage over other proprietary systems that are not supporting here the local economy. Yeah, you can like use free and open source software, implement a local payment gateway, and you already have something that other systems don't have. And what do we get as, for example, the makers of the software? We get new contributors. We get another company. They earn income with us, with our system, and in return they contribute back to our system. So, and if all over the world small companies do that, we are much more powerful. And this is the power of collaboration. Yeah, like a traditional company is top down. They come from America or they come from Europe, and they say, here is our software, and you use it, and you have to pay for it. You want changes, you have to pay for it. But here you can do it yourself. You can develop your own abilities, and the technology transfer is a completely different technology transfer. It's not like from like in the old times, 80s, 90s, how we said, yeah, here is a big company and we come from Europe and we give you a technology and we share a bit of it and now you learn from us. No, it's a technology transfer from all over the world to every other part of the world. It's completely on an equal basis. It's not like you come from one place of the world and you share it with you and you transfer the technology to you, but you actually, everyone contributes and we all share technology. It's much better feeling, yeah? As if you come like even for the person, like in the old sense, come from Europe and say, here's our technology. It's a bit like, you know, it feels much better if you can work on an equal basis. And this is really what I love about open source. And we have many examples that I hope to share here in future, where we actually, for example, had like contributors from India and they shared the Pocket Science Lab original design with us, and then other people came on board. Is really a beautiful story, and I hope we will see more of this by collaborating here in Oman.
Thank you very much, Mario. Question to Nasser from the audience, Saeed Abdussalam. We have been talking about the benefits of applying free and open source software for years. However, it seems that most governmental bodies are still reluctant to adopt this idea. How can this problem be solved?
It's a very big question. Right. So I think I've mentioned some success factors that I believe, if we look at them, would probably ease this issue a little bit. Before I go into some of the success factors that I would like to mention, I just would like to refer everybody to a study which was done by the FOSSC and ITA back in the 2015. Ahmed was, I think, a principal investigator into that study along with the ITA, and I believe that study highlighted a lot of things that could be adopted to speed up the adoption of free and open source software in the government, and I believe there was a roadmap. So the complete answer to this is probably available into that study. I just would like to highlight the experiment that we did here in FOSSC. I believe one of the things is that engaging different stakeholders on board from day zero is very important, and that applies to top management, that applies to your technical team, and that applies even to end users. And you have to talk to each one of these with the language they understand and with the, issues that they care most about. So when you have to present this to top management, you have to talk about business continuity, you have to talk about cost, you have to present a very solid business case that would get you the support. If you talk to technical teams, then you need to make sure well, this move, for example, is good for building your capacity, for making you more competent into the field, and same thing goes to the end users. So engaging end users, I think, is very, very key reason. The points mentioned by my friend in the previous talk, I think, is very crucial as well. So when it comes to adapting software, you have to adapt the principles of software before you go and select a software solution. Openness is very important, and that basically means, as he mentioned, you cannot expect an open source software solution to fly and you are not sharing the source code. I mean, you are just neglecting the entire idea of open and open source software. So I guess these are the two key main success factors that should be looked at. And again, I would like to refer the audience to the study Ahmed mentioned. I think it contains a lot of details.
Quick correction, I was not the principal investigator. The PI was Professor Halberdoosen. I was one of the investigators.
Right. So you are one of the investigators. So
one of them. Question to Abhas, and if you can answer it in 1 minute because we're really pressured in time. Abhas, what is the best way to convey the top management, to use the open source software? I think more or less relevant to the question that he was answering.
Well, I don't know of one way that would apply to every situation. So my general way of looking at it is you have to find one thing they want to achieve by using some software for that, solving that problem, and then find a way to bring free software as a way of doing that implementation. So what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? Okay, first that's the main question. Now to solve that problem, I'm trying to build software or procure service from someone. Now, if you evaluate what choices you have, you will find the pros and cons for that, and then you will understand what are the advantages that free software can provide against all other options, right? So then, if the advantages that free software provides are more convincing than that of something else, and I'm sure people, so it's also like you have to understand that every decision is not reasonable all the time. And if every decision was reasonable, I don't see why everyone would not be using free software, right? So there are other challenges, people might not understand. You could give the best argument, but someone might not be receptive to it, right? So there is no way to answer this because there are too many factors which are outside your control. But what I can say to someone who is trying to pitch to their management is that they should not stop pitching it. They might not get success very quickly, but if they stop pitching, then they will definitely not get success. So they have to keep, giving the same message to their management in different ways. And that way, they will also improve their arguments. They would also find and observe what things they look at when they make their choices, and then they would be able to use that in their favor, in their arguments. So we should not stop talking just because people are not listening.
Thank you for that answer. Last question, because we're really late and we need to go for lunch. Probably this question should be shared between Mario and Dorothy. Maybe each one of you can give a minute of your time to give your own perspective. Although, this is by Ahmed al-Hajri, although open source solutions offer great opportunities, but to learn how to use or customize a solution is quite time consuming. Or finding a pro developer is not easy. How we can get through this?
So actually, yeah, what's easy in life? I don't know, like you want to go learn, like speak another language, you have to learn it. You have to, you want to, yeah, install a system, develop a system, well, you have to learn it. If not, you pay somebody else to do it. I mean, yeah, so yeah, that's my short answer. I mean, like I always like the example of the hairdresser. Yeah, actually cutting hair is maybe easy, but maybe I would prefer to go to a real hairdresser. Some people pay really a lot for hairdressers, so there is a difference. Yeah, I mean, to be a good hairdresser is difficult, so you also pay for it. To install software and so on is difficult, but like I would add the point of short-term versus long-term. So if you want sometimes a short-term solution, maybe there's even proprietary systems that give you something for free. But if you have actually the goal of having a big company, or maybe you have a big company, maybe you look at it. Nothing is really for free. If you want free and open source, it has actually long-term advantages. That you can implement your own add-ons, or you don't have a vendor lock-in. You don't depend on one vendor. You can choose different vendors and can go to somebody else if you don't like the quality, or if it's too expensive. So this is an important point I would like to add, the short-term versus long-term.
Okay. Dorothy, your take?
I think that you've made a good point about the short-term versus the long-term. I want to also remind people of the national strategic value of it. When you depend on external software, you introduce a new security vulnerability nationally. It means that your critical national infrastructure is dependent on software that perhaps you have no ability to understand, no ability to unpack. In this day and age where we see that cyber attacks become part of cyber warfare, well, general warfare, it isn't really advisable to have that level of vulnerability. And let me also add that there is no business that is going to pick up a software and implement it without some level of customization, whether it is open source or whether it is proprietary. If for your business, you will have to customize to some level. And it's better that you understand what has been customized and you understand when you will need to re-customize, and you will have that ability to do it internally rather than being dependent on the external. So I think that sometimes we need to take the conversation away from the firm level and start looking at it from a national level. Is this where we want to be? Do we want to be totally dependent on external technology, whether it's coming out of Silicon Valley or it's coming out of the Chinese equivalent? Do we want to be dependent?
Thank you. And I think that basically concludes the session. I would like to thank Mario, Dorothy, Nasser, and Abhas for answering the questions. And I would like also to ask the audience for asking these questions. That's it for today, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Shukran.